Task Force lectures on patient safety. These lectures are basic lectures on various topics of patient safety and are brought to you by the members of the Task Force Patient Safety of the European Board and European Society of Anesthesiology. Members of the task force are Guttorm Brattebø from Norway and Andrew Fairley-Smith and David Whittaker from the United Kingdom. The task force is chaired by Sven Stender from Switzerland. The topic of this lecture is the Helsinki Declaration: Implications for the Future. This lecture is presented by Sven Stender on behalf of the members of the task force. In this lecture we will concentrate on safety and risk aspects in anesthesiology. We will briefly talk about outcome aspects like mortality and morbidity related to anesthesia care. Then we will take a look at selected process aspects like handover and distractions. Finally, I will present to you the strategy of the European Board and European Society of Anesthesiology with their joint Helsinki Declaration. When we talk about mortality, we must start with a publication from Beecher and Todd from the year 1954. They reported a death rate of 1 in 2,700 cases, with death being 6 times more frequent with curare, and concluded that curare is an inherent toxic substance. Today we know that it is probably not the toxicity of that drug, but the simple use of it. Over the last decades, anesthesia-related mortality has decreased dramatically, with today being around 1 anesthesia-related death in about 180,000 patients. The same is true for maternal mortality. General improvements in care of these ladies, as well as the increase in the rate of cesarean sections being performed under regional anesthesia, certainly have contributed to that dramatic improvement. But when it comes to anesthesia-related morbidity, the numbers are no longer that favorable. Alan Aitkenhead has published a very instructive article in the British Journal of Anesthesia in 2005 on all the different harm that we can cause: cerebral damage, awareness, pulmonary morbidity or aspiration, morbidity during central venous catheter placement, peripheral or central nerve damage, and anaphylaxia. Compared to anesthetic mortality, anesthesia-related morbidity is much more frequent. A number of studies reported on minor morbidity, severe events, cardiac morbidity or permanent damage in a range of about 1 to 20 patients per 100 patients being harmed by anesthesia. So let's now leave outcome aspects and concentrate on process aspects in anesthesia care. One of these process aspects is handover. Handover means transferring a patient from one unit to the other, for example, from the operation room to the recovery room or the ICU, or from ICU to the general ward. This transition of patients is a very risky situation, with a lot of information getting lost when this process is not performed structured or in a standardized way. Another process aspect is the aspect of distraction. In this very interesting study, Georges Salvodelli and co-workers from the University of Geneva did video observations of anesthesia inductions. They found in the mean 5 interruptions during each induction by alarms, beepers or colleagues disturbing the team during induction. These interruptions had an influence on more than 20% of induction time and were graded as having a negative influence on patient management in about 20% of the cases. In aviation, regulators know about this problem of distraction, and there exists a regulation called the Sterile Cockpit Rule. With no cockpit activities not related to safe flight operation during critical phases of a flight are allowed. That means taxiing, takeoff and landing, and all flight operations below 10,000 feet except cruise flight. Activities such as eating, non-essential conversation between crew members or other personnel, and reading of the newspapers are forbidden. All this has led the European Board of Anesthesiology and the European Society of Anesthesiology to think about a strategy on patient safety. A number of conferences and meetings as well as a magnitude of emails were necessary to finally decide on the content of this Helsinki Declaration, which has been launched during the Euro Anesthesia Congress in Helsinki in the year 2010. This Helsinki Declaration has been published in the same year in the June issue of the European Journal of Anesthesiology in 2010. Heads of agreement were the endorsement of the WFSA standards on anesthesia practice, patient involvement, the knowledge that funders should provide appropriate resources, that patient safety needs training and education. It looks upon the importance of human factors and team aspects, and finally shows up the cooperation and the importance of the cooperation with the industry. The principal requirements in that Helsinki Declaration are a compliance with minimum standards of monitoring, the availability of clinical protocols like protocols on difficult airway management, anaphylaxis or massive hemorrhage, the application of recognized sedation standards, the support of the WHO Safe Surgery campaign, and contribution to incident reporting systems on the local and on the national level. How shall all this be done? The European Board and the European Society jointly have set up a task force on patient safety with Andrew Fairley-Smith and David Whittaker from the United Kingdom and Guttorm Brattebø from Norway being members of that task force that is chaired by Sven Stender from Switzerland. The action plan of that task force implies to create resources, to create visibility, to create benefit, and to create knowledge. The plan implies to publish a book on patient safety, to publish a template for safety reports and protocols, to work on a web page and on an annual report, to work on a clearinghouse for incident reporting, and to create knowledge by supporting drug syringe labeling studies and a study on safety systems in Europe. The book on patient safety has already been published last year in June in 2011 in the series of Best Practice and Research Clinical Anesthesiology, with Hugo van Aken being the editor-in-chief. Chapters of that book look on the quality of the work, look on morbidity, they relate on high reliability organizations. There are chapters on the contribution of labeling to safe medication administration, on checklists, handover, human performance, incident reporting, safety culture, simulation, education, close claims, and others. A template of a departmental safety report has also been generated meanwhile. This report is available on the website of the task force on the ESA website. It is intended that departments of anesthesia can fill in their numbers related to safety and share their findings with others over the ESA website. A special Helsinki Declaration website has been created and is available on the ESA webpage. Another activity of that task force is the creation of a European platform for hazard warnings. Quite some national anesthesia societies already have national incident reporting systems in place. In all of these systems, interesting cases as well as safety-relevant informations are collected. The idea behind such a European platform now is to connect all these national platforms and to make these national experiences available internationally. Contents could be, for example, hazard warnings, quick alerts, outstanding individual cases, or even national recommendations. For example, in Switzerland, our Critical Incident Reporting and Reacting Network regularly publishes so-called quick alerts with safety-relevant information on a wide spectrum of aspects of our daily work. Other requirements that are put together in the Heads of Agreement are training and education in patient safety. This led to the creation of the European Patient Safety Course directed by Markus Rahl from Germany. This basic patient safety course is split in two parts before the annual Euro Anesthesia Congress and covers a wide spectrum of safety-relevant topics. With this Helsinki Declaration, anesthesiology has emphasized the key role of our specialty in promoting safe perioperative care.